Let's jump right in. Welcome to today's explainer. If you've been paying literally any attention to the news lately, you've definitely heard the names Ozempic, Mounjaro. But look, beyond all the flashy headlines and the celebrity gossip, there is a profound, fundamental shift happening in biology and society right now. We're going to unpack the fascinating science and the staggering global impact behind the massive medical hype of GLP-1 weight loss drugs, because we are looking at a medical revolution that could literally reshape the future of human health.
I mean, think about this. By 2050, half of humanity is projected to be overweight. Half. But for the very first time in human history, we finally have a biological off switch. We've got a medication that reliably, quickly, and seemingly safely can help people lose massive amounts of weight. But to really grasp why this is such a game changer, we have to look at the terrifying trajectory we are currently on as a species.
So here is how we're going to break it all down today. First, we'll look at the 2050 obesity trap, then dive into biology and the hunger hormones, explore the GLP-1 revolution, weigh the miracle and the catch, and finally, see how this is reshaping our health future. Let's get into it. Part 1. The 2050 obesity trap. To understand the cure, we absolutely have to understand the sheer scale of the disease that's currently crushing our global healthcare systems. If current trends hold up, 1 in 3 adults on Earth will be completely obese by 2050. 1 in 3! To put that in perspective, right now, more than half of Europeans are already overweight or obese, along with 1 in 3 kids. And in countries like the US, Mexico, Chile, Saudi Arabia, the numbers are even worse. We're talking about over 1 billion people suffering from what is essentially a massive, unsolved, and wildly underfunded chronic disease. And the human cost here is just heartbreaking. Excess weight is already killing almost 4 million people globally every single year. It's driving everything from diabetes to heart attacks, even cancer. This isn't just about aesthetics. It is quite literally one of the most deadly chronic diseases of our time. And yet, for decades, our main societal response has basically been telling people to just eat better, which, let's be honest, does very little in the real world. Now, it's super important we define obesity purely medically. We need to strip away all that toxic societal shame and realize this is a chronic disease that needs a scientific solution. When people hear the word obese, they often picture extreme ends of the spectrum. But bodies vary wildly. Medically, it might just mean a BMI over 30 or a body fat percentage of over 25% for men and 32% for women. It's not a judgment on how anyone looks. It just means a body is carrying an unhealthy amount of fat that's disrupting its biological systems.
Okay, part 2. Biology and the hunger hormones. It is well past time to completely dismantle the myth that obesity is just a lack of willpower. Why have traditional diets and behavioral methods overwhelmingly failed? Well, we have to look at our evolutionary programming. For almost all of human history, food was really scarce. So when our ancestors stumbled on a calorie bomb, binging on it was literally a survival mechanism. It was the smartest thing they could do. But fast forward to today, drop that same biological wiring into a modern snack aisle, and our brains just short out. Our environment changed practically overnight, and our biology, it just hasn't caught up. And that brings us to the food itself. Did you know about half of the products in a US grocery store are considered ultra-processed? Food is heavily engineered now. It's cheap, it's packed with calories, and it's practically weaponized with addictive levels of sugar, fat, and salt. Why? To make the reward centers in our brains go absolutely ballistic with joy. Pair these hyper-palatable foods with tricky serving sizes and nonstop advertising, and it's no wonder people are regularly overeating without even noticing. And the trap is so subtle. Just half an extra Snickers bar a day, just half, compounds to 10 pounds of fat gained in a single year. That's almost 5 kilos. People aren't gaining weight because they massively lack self-control. They're just eating a tiny, tiny bit too much over a long period of time. And the kicker? Once that weight is gained, your body actively fights against you. It actually defends that new higher fat baseline.
So, part 3, the GLP-1 revolution. How on earth do we fight back against an environment that has literally weaponized our own hunger? Well, your hunger is actually this complex orchestra of hormones. A lot of behaviors, like whether you grab a piece of chocolate or a carrot, are governed by hormones completely outside your conscious control. When you eat, your body naturally releases a hormone called GLP-1. It tells your pancreas to release insulin, it slows down digestion in your stomach, and it signals your brain that you're full. But naturally, this signal is incredibly brief. It fades away in barely 2 minutes. And here is where the revolution happens. Scientists figured out how to create artificial copies of GLP-1, drugs like semaglutide and tirzepatide. They take that fleeting 2-minute natural signal and turn it into a loud, week-long siren. Because this upgraded signal never switches off, you just feel less hungry all day, 24/7. For folks dealing with genetic food noise, that constant nagging urge to eat in the back of your mind, this is a massive psychological relief. All of a sudden, eating less feels effortless.
The real-world results? Absolutely staggering. Patients are reliably melting away excess weight at a scale we used to only see with invasive bariatric surgery. In just 3 months, people are dropping 10% of their body weight. Hit the 6-month mark, 15%. By a year, it's often 20% or more. These drugs are changing behavior simply by tweaking biology. But of course, anytime we alter our biology this dramatically, we really have to ask, what's the catch?
Which brings us to part 4, the miracle and the catch. Because while the weight loss is blowing people's minds, the secondary effects are where the true medical revolution and the risks really lie.
By getting this metabolic orchestra back in sync, these drugs are taking down a whole host of other deadly diseases. We're talking about a 20% drop in the risk of stroke and heart attacks, a massive 66% drop in the risk of developing diabetes. It reduces sleep apnea, lowers inflammation, and improves kidney and liver function. And get this, they actually decrease cravings for alcohol, nicotine, and even opioids. It's like a master switch for health.
But actually, hold on, here is the catch. If you just take the drug and practically starve yourself, you're basically falling into a really dangerous crash diet trap. Rapid weight loss without proper nutrition, specifically high protein and resistance training, is going to melt away your vital muscle mass. If you treat this like a magic wand, it can actually be harmful, especially after age 40 when losing muscle drastically increases fall risks. You still have to put in the actual work to build healthy habits. Because if you don't use that time on the medication to change your lifestyle, well, the hunger hormones are going to reboot the second you stop taking it. Look at the numbers. After a year or so, weight loss plateaus, and folks often stop the meds. If nothing else changed in their habits, about 25% regain a significant chunk of weight, and 20% put back every single pound. This drug isn't a permanent cure. It buys you a window of time free from intense hunger to totally change your life.
All right, part 5, reshaping our health future. Let's look at the big picture. What actually happens to the global healthcare economy if these drugs become universally accessible by 2050?
Well, a recent study modeled what would happen if we gave GLP-1s to all obese and overweight adults in the US. The result? It would literally halve the country's obesity rate in just 2 years. I mean, wow. Having a nationwide epidemic in 24 months, for the first time ever, we have a tool that could make a nation's obesity rate actually plummet. Fast forward to 2050, and the compound effect of that is just mind-blowing. We are talking about preventing 26 million cases of diabetes and 13 million cases of heart disease. That would alleviate an unimaginable financial burden on our healthcare systems. Most importantly, it would prevent 5.5 million premature deaths. That is a complete and total paradigm shift for the economics of human health.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Right now, there are huge supply shortages, and the prices are sky high, making this totally inaccessible for so many people who desperately need it. But here's the thing. Patents have an expiration date. Soon, the patents for semaglutide and tirzepatide are going to expire in many countries. And when they do, prices are going to absolutely collapse. Production will scale up globally, and defeating obesity on a mass scale will finally, realistically, be within our reach.
So I want to leave you with one final thought. These drugs are without a doubt a miracle of modern science. But are they the final cure or just a really powerful tool buying us time? If half of humanity is headed toward being overweight by 2050, GLP-1s are basically a life raft. But eventually, we got to look at the water we're swimming in, right? Will we just inject obesity away? Or will we use this borrowed time to finally fix a food environment that engineers our food to be addictive? The question is, how are we going to use the time we've just bought ourselves? Thanks for joining me on today's Explainer. I'll see you next time.